everyone. Welcome to rainy Raleigh. Hopefully where you are, you're having a beautiful sunshiny day. And if you're in the southeast area, I hope you're staying safe with all these tornadoes going around. We're really excited. We're going to be talking about life lessons today because I never seem to run out of lessons to learn. So I'm sure that I'm going to learn a lot today. And our guest has done her life lessons through poetry and song. And so we're going to have a lot of fun exploring that. Today's Reawaken You. When I was doing the show last week, I caught myself correcting myself in my head and being like, oh my gosh, you should have clarified that more. You made a mistake. You stumbled over that word. And, you know, as much as I do this, or as much as I work on myself, that annoying, pesky perfection ego can sometimes jump in there and try to shut me down or correct me where I've made all these mistakes. So this week I want you to just tell your ego to take a break. Sit in the back seat, ask yourself, whose voice is that when you hear that perfection thing? Because sometimes that can get us derailed enough to not continue with the project instead of putting ourselves out there. So just say no to perfection this week. All right, we're going to tell you about today's guest. Beloved Heartsong is the director and instructor of the La Ho Chi Institute. For 30 plus years, she has been learning and practicing many energy healing modalities to develop inner awareness, expand and develop the subtle energy bodies and how it applies to healing, nurturing, and nourishing the physical, mental, and emotional bodies. She also leads workshops on how to develop inner guidance and intuition, how to create consciously, facilitates sacred tantric dance workshop, and leads retreats to Mount Shasta, California, where she currently resides. She's a singer, songwriter, composer, pianist. Her CD, Forever Your Love, assists people to open their hearts as they move through transition in any stage of the death and dying process. Welcome, beloved.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
We're excited to have you. So let's start. I've got your book here. Hopefully you guys can see that. It's so pretty, The Cosmic Cradle. Well, first thing I want to know, how'd you come up with that name, The Cosmic Cradle? Was there inspiration for that or just seemed to fit with the life lessons of the book?
There was inspiration and guidance through every step of it. And I had the most amazing experience receiving this book. I had a journal that I used to keep next to me as I meditated every morning. And I would receive lessons on how to tweak my perspective in life, how to shift the door of my mind open and heal and nurture myself through emotional and mental and spiritual tribulations. And so what I found was that the lessons really made a difference. And I would also receive poetry from time to time. And I didn't sit and write the poetry or make up the lessons. I would hear them as a voice in my head. Sometimes I'd be awakened at night with the messages or the poetry. Other times in the shower or when I was driving. I had 3 little kids then, so it seemed like anytime I was still or just not paying attention to anything in particular, it would start flooding through. And so over the course of 3 years, the messages on how to lift my life, how to tweak my perspective, and the poetry came through. And when I got to the end of the physical journal, I was given a title and a foreword, and that's when I knew it was a book. And so I was pretty excited about that.
Now, talk a little bit, would you say with all your creative endeavors, is it divine inspiration, divine guidance? Is that how you roll?
Yes, it is. That's how we roll. It's a really amazing process. And when I started teaching the La Ho Chi, I watched other people open with it too. And before that, when I first took it, it's what really opened me up. And the more I did it, the more my gifts came through and the more psychic and tuned in I seemed to become. And so as the years rolled through, I went through channeling information like this and poetry into being able to tap into other people and doing psychic, if you will, readings, mediumship, that kind of stuff with people and for groups. And as I went further with it, it went into my music. And so for years I've received volumes of poetry that's yet to be published, and teachings, and also hundreds of songs. And so it's a pretty beautiful process.
What would you say to people out there, I mean, and not only artists who are writing books or composers who are making music, about listening to divine guidance? Because I know I'm really working hard to clear my junk out. It's a continual process, unfortunately. I'm not at the end. But I found, especially recently, I think I'm really aware of this, my intuition has just gone to another level. And so there's sometimes on our intuition, you're like, really? Are you sure about that? And so people question that. But that is divine guidance. So what advice would you have for people and honoring that?
That's a great question, because guidance is something that everyone can listen to and learn to trust and follow. And when you learn to listen to guidance, your life becomes much more simple and grace-filled and less dramatic, less reactive, and things flow well. And so what I learned early on is to trust the little voice. And for me, when it started, I used to talk about this at my workshops all the time. It would start as I would reach to get a pair of socks, to go hiking. And I'd have maybe 6 pairs of identical white socks, and I'd reach for one pair, and I'd hear, no, not that one. And I'd reach for the next one, and I'd hear, no, not that one. And then I'd think, well, what does it matter? But I'd hear, it matters, pay attention. And so then I'd reach for another one, it was that one. And I'd say, okay. And I had that for months, every morning. And I thought, this is really crazy. But what I realized in the process was that I was learning to listen and follow. And as I did, then the guidance started shifting to turn left. No, turn left here, or don't take that. Take your sweater, or go back and check the door, or whatever it was. I was really glad I had listened. And so I learned early on that there was benefit to the guidance. Once I was a good listener and follower, the guidance became more complex and wasn't scary. But one of the things that's important to know when you're trying to follow your guidance is that if you have fear or doubt, then it's going to get in the way of what you receive. You aren't going to get the guidance to sell your house, quit your job, leave your husband, and move across the country if you don't listen to turn left. And so you have to go to the place where you start trusting and listening. And even when you make mistakes, it's okay. So a great thing to do is to journal your guidance. Write down when you get it, how you feel when you receive it, your resistance to it, whether or not you follow it, and then pay attention to what happens afterwards. And then as you keep going with it, you'll see that you improve in your listening skills.
I would just want to tell a little story. This past week, we were remodeling our kitchen and going insane. And we're almost done. But a couple things, like really within the past 2 days, we went to get a light on Sunday, and I said, don't get that light. Now, my husband, really does respect my intuition, but he thought it was me being cheap and a decorative issue, so he overruled me. Well, we brought the light home, and it didn't work. So he was like, I should have listened to you, and I said, it's all good. And then we went to Lowe's yesterday, and I heard, deposit your check. I pay myself once a month, so I heard, deposit your check before you go to Lowe's. And I was like, well, Tony's got to get to work, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't do it, and guess what? I lost the check. Now, we can talk about perspectives in a moment, because you talk about that in your book. I lost the check at Lowe's. So I went out to deposit my check later in the afternoon, and so I went to Lowe's, and I said, hey, did y'all, because then my phone wasn't working. It was one of those days. And so so this woman next to me in line was like, one person was like, you're never going to get it. And this woman was like, I lost my ATM card at a flea market and turned it in. I said, you know what? I believe people are good. I believe someone's going to find that check, and they're going to turn it in because they know how it would feel if they lost their check. And they'd want someone to find it. And sure enough, I got a call at Lowe's at 8 o'clock. Hey, we found your check. We wanted to call you and have you come and get it. So that's just a little thing about honoring, but I didn't. And that's just kind of on it. But then my day, I think what's so important, the bigger point here is life's easier. It's less stressful. It's there to help you. It's not there to harm you. And the other thing, and I'd love for you to comment on this, is I've heard, go do that. And I'm like, seriously? But I've listened and done it. But I trust maybe if there's not an immediate reason for doing that, I don't know, 6 months down the road or a year from now, it'll make sense, but to still follow that.
Yeah, sometimes you don't know why you're being told to do something, and you never know. And then other times you find out later. And even when I used to do readings for people, I would get information, I'd think to myself, I cannot say that to them. They're going to think I'm crazy because it didn't make any sense to me. And what I found out from listening, and following was that it didn't make sense to me because it wasn't for me. It didn't have anything to do with me. And it was for them. And so the things that I thought were the most crazy, that they would just roll their eyes at, were always the places where they connected the most deeply. And they'd say, oh, yes, I have a story I can tell you about that. And I'd go, oh, okay, great. Because it was such an important thing to them. And so listening to your guidance as you follow it, you soon get such positive feedback from yourself in your life, and from other people too. There's so many times I have walked out the door and they'll say, take an extra water bottle. And I have no idea why. And then I'd meet my friend to walk and she'd go, God, I forgot my water bottle, and you go, oh, well, here. So, you've got all kinds of grace that flows when you listen. And when you don't, you usually find out that something could have worked a little better if you had. And it just takes practice. It takes commitment to trusting yourself.
What I like about your book is it's I can pick it up at any chapter, any area, and read. And usually what I like to do with stuff like this, okay, what lesson do I need to hear today? Because there's always something in it for me. And again, I have 1,000 bazillion life lessons, so I'm keep learning. I know you're not supposed to play favorites, but is there any in particular poem or little excerpt in here you're like, oh my gosh, I just really love that? Or you're a nice mom and love all your children equally?
I'm a nice mom and I love all my children equally. And I love my poems and my lessons, and they all made a big difference at the time I received them. They're all prescriptive and really worked to serve me in beautiful ways as I came through. One that I really love that people talk to me about a lot is the last one. It's called Invite Tomorrow In. And you want me to share it?
Yeah,
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So it says, as you drift into sleep each night, give thanks for the day that you have experienced, releasing it lovingly and gently, without judgment. Breathe through these moments of transition with clear intention, letting go in gratitude and gentleness. And as you do this, you consciously choose to honor the gift of your life. Invite tomorrow in with joy. Invite the dawn of the rest of your life. Invite the promise and hope, the laughter and the tears, the fullness of life. You need not know what the future holds, only that you embrace it. Invite the peace, the love, and the comfort of gentleness. Invite the love of self and others that comes with an open heart. Invite your heart to open more fully with each morning. Invite your divine essence to shine forth without judgment or fear, in unconditional love. In your thoughts and heart, invite those in your life to join you in this process, and then invite sleep.
There are more than one life lesson just in that one poem. What I like is, and you have a little section change in the book as well, but about embracing the fullness of life, because we are, as you hear many people say, we are a spiritual being in a human body having a human experience, and so life is sadness and happiness and all of that. And I remember someone said to me ages ago in my early 20s, you're going to have the waves, it's about learning how to ride the waves. And I think there's that we can talk about a lot. Talk about change, because I know when I was younger, I was like a cat. Change would just throw me off. I didn't want it. I couldn't do it. And as I've gotten older, which is kind of interesting, because I think the older you get, the more set in your ways you become and more challenged. But I embrace change a lot better than I used to, and have trusted, okay, well, if this big change is coming, there's a reason for it. But then it also goes back. Let's talk about change, but I just want to bring this into it about trusting our guidance, because I'm doing some things now that I'm like, you know what, there are a bigger reason that I'm doing it, and just trust it and do it and go with it. But share some thoughts on change.
Well, change is what brings you hope. Change is what helps you understand what you want and don't want in your life. It gives you contrast. And so you can really get clear on, wow, I really don't want this, or I really do want this, and start motivating in a direction that will support what's for your next step in your highest good and your growth and your unfolding. And also, as you embrace change, you have to remember, guidance doesn't always come at once. You don't get the whole story. You get a piece of the puzzle, one little piece at a time, or one stepping stone at a time. And so you may be told, okay, put on these socks, then put on your coat, then go out the door, then, so you're not going to get the whole big picture, because sometimes we don't understand the direction we're going in. And if we knew the whole picture, we'd be afraid of it. Our mind would get in the way. How's it going to happen? How's it possible? How can I afford it? I don't see the big picture. It's hard for us to envision and know the fullness of who we're becoming. And because we have free will in every moment, we get the guidance to support that as we change and shift and think. And so our belief systems play a big part in that and what we're open to in each moment. But the change itself is the gift. It's the one constant in the universe. And we seem to resist it a lot. It's easier to embrace it when you trust your guidance.
Oh, I love that. That's a nice little nugget there. That makes, what a great way to say that, because as you're saying that, it makes me think when I was younger and resisted, of course, what you resist persists, but I didn't trust it because I wanted to control everything. What a shocker, but it's true. Let's talk a little bit about, in that last one, open heart.
Yeah.
And embracing that, because I think so many of us we've all have our challenges or been hurt, and sometimes that makes us close our heart down. So talk about having an open heart.
An open heart is probably the most important thing we can hold in our whole lives, because having an open heart means we're open to receive, not just to give, but to receive. And many people know how to be loving and do nice things for others and make time for others and keep themselves busy for the sake of others. But if you look at these people, how many of them actually know how to receive? How many actually give themselves permission to receive love? They think that it's frivolous. I've got work to do. I have something else I have to get done first. Or, being a good mother or a good wife or a good sister or a good anything. We have ideas in our head about what that looks like. And that really gets in the way of receiving. And so if we allow our hearts to be open, that means we can receive the flow that's coming to us too, and embrace it. Not just acknowledge it, but embrace it and receive it with grace. And to do that means that we're accepting someone else's gifts and someone else's love, which makes their heart open even more because they feel the blessing of what they're doing. So that flow back and forth between hearts is what creates grace and love and joy and beauty and inspiration and creativity and the understanding between two people that they are more together than they are on their own, and that what they can create together is magnificent and beautiful and full. And so we have so much to gain from opening our hearts to ourselves and giving ourselves permission to receive love, and in giving love to someone else, to open our hearts to forgiveness, to open our hearts to change, and to truth, right? Secrets can make us contract and make us shut down, and truth sets you free, right? It opens the gift of the universe to flow in however it will.
Talk a little bit about, there's another great nugget in there about judgment, because it took me a long time, but I realized when I judge another, I'm really judging myself. And I still sometimes get caught up in that when I get annoyed. But, the other piece of judgment, too, I've learned is that what someone does is all about them. It has nothing to do with me. But how I react is all about me. Am I going to have a conscious reaction, or going to have that knee-jerk reaction of anger or fear or whatever it is? Talk a little bit about judgment.
Yeah, that's a really important one. Judgment, they say if you point your finger at somebody and you turn around, it's really, there's one pointing back at you. And the energy of judging is usually something that people who want to control situations do. And judgment really takes you out of oneness. It takes you into separation, and it takes you into fear. And it has to make somebody right and somebody else wrong. And the truth is, we all have our own viewpoints and our own perspectives. And like you said, what someone does or what they say or what they think about you has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the way they see the world and the way they are interpreting whatever's happening in the moment. Your interpretation can be completely different and as valid. And so the important thing is to know that if we know the truth behind the veils of our faces, If we see all life as God's face, all beings as God's face, or spirit, or universal life force, whatever you want to call it, if we see that in each other, then we know that we're really one. We're one light, we're one mind, we're one heart, we're one unified field of love. And in that, we're all whole. And in the infinite spectrum of the expression of that, we all get to be just who we are without judgment. And we can all make mistakes, we can all learn and grow, and we can all forgive and see the grace, you know. And when someone does something we don't like, we can see the message and the gift of it for ourselves. Ask maybe where we do this in our own lives to ourselves or to others, and forgive ourselves for it and forgive them, because most people are really doing the best they can no matter what they're doing, and they want to do well.
I agree with you, but let's talk a little bit about the concept of oneness. Because, you know, on one level, you can be like, yeah, we're all one energy, it's all good. But then someone's like, well, I'm not that Donald Sterling, that evil man in L.A. I'm not part of him. He doesn't reflect me. And that's kind of, you know, I know for me was a big obstacle to get, like, well, how can I be a part of something that's darkness? So share your thoughts on that.
Well, we are all the spectrum. We all have light and darkness within us. We all have light and dark behavior at different times. And we can all see and appreciate the pits of hell as people rise up out of it, right? We've been there, we've done that, and we know how hard it is to overcome challenges and how much stronger we become in the process of doing that. And so each person is learning their own life lessons they've come to learn in their own way. And, you know, if we look back through different lifetimes or different situations in this lifetime, we can see that we've all been all of it. And we may not be doing the same thing in our lives that someone else is doing to us in the moment. But there's a place where we can relate to the lesson of it. You know, where can we be more honest with ourselves? Where can we be more gentle with ourselves? Where can we find compassion and tenderness and step out of judgment and be in our true radiant heart? We don't have to excuse bad behavior. We don't have to tolerate bad behavior. Part of self-love is setting healthy boundaries. We may not choose to ever spend time with that person again, but we can say to ourselves that the behavior may be bad, but the person, the essence, the energy is still divine and whole and perfect. And we need to understand that in that perfection, we've donned this costume in this life to learn certain lessons and to teach certain lessons.
I think that's wonderful. What a great thing to remember, that it's the behavior that's not exactly fantastic, but the person is still that divine essence, because I think so many times we lose that. Now, talk about, I love conscious, I call it awareness, conscious presence, because I think that that's so important. One thing I try to create with the show is what I'd call awareness, conscious presence. You know, I look at it as a spiral, and I'm working on trying to go up that spiral. Sometimes I drop down, but one thing that I'm really trying to work on in every moment, being aware of how I react. Am I going to react from the higher observation, or am I going to drop down into judgment? So talk a little bit about conscious presence.
Conscious presence is the universe in its full awareness of itself. And we all, as divine beings of love and light and grace and God, have the ability to tap in any moment to our fuller presence, our fuller expression of that, through meditation, through sitting in silence, through closing our eyes and just deep breathing. And that is the greatest gift we can give ourselves, and the greatest gift we can give others, is to sit with an open heart and be fully present. Sometimes just holding someone's hand or just sitting next to them is enough. You don't even have to say anything. Our children need our full presence. You know, if we're on the phone or watching TV or multitasking, we're not being present. And so to be present with someone, you single task and you show up with your full presence and awareness, looking in their eyes, listening with your heart, not literally to each word, but how does it feel in your body to receive what they're saying and sharing? How can you gift them with your full presence of yes, I'm here loving you, listening to you, supporting you, even if you don't know what to say? And people get that. And that's what ministers do when they go sit and minister to someone and sit by their bedside, or a mother with a sick child, or a father, or anyone. It's just so important to be present. All life unfolds in the present moment. You create in the present moment. Joy is in the present moment. So when you are thinking about the past or the future, you're not in the present moment, and you're not creating. You are being elsewhere. So to be fully present, that's the greatest present you can give someone, right? And so that creates a resonance in your body. It creates a physiological response in the body of peace. And even when you're fully present to trauma or crisis, that full presence brings more of you into your whole self in alignment, so you have more to pull from. Your wisdom, your emotions, and your expression of who you are in each moment is going to come from a deeper place, because you don't have to react to a trigger. You're pulling up from the depths of who you are a more conscious response. And so presence means everything in every moment of your life.
That's really profound. I have two thoughts, but let's do the one, and hopefully I'm old and won't forget the other before it's too late. But if you're in crisis, because we all at one time or another are in crisis or in an uncomfortable moment, remain present and to I love how you said that, to get to the depths of yourself and honor that. Because think about that, because how many times are we immediately going to the future? Oh God, I can't wait till this is over. Or we've gone to the past and said, oh my gosh, I just can't, I can't deal with this. What else did this remind me of? But wow, even in crisis or trauma, to stay present, that's extremely powerful.
Yeah, it's, just to hold someone's hand, or just to look in their eyes. Not many people actually hold the gaze when they're speaking to someone. They don't keep looking in someone's eyes. And so we often become intimidated by someone who will hold the gaze, because in the past that was a threat, maybe of anger, or oh boy, you're in trouble with your mom now, and or we reserve that for someone we really want to be intimate with. But we can bring a level of intimacy to all levels of relationships, in the workplace, in the family, even just at the checkout register. We can show up for someone and speak to them with love in our hearts, and it shines through your eyes. There's a song about that on my CD. So
we'll talk about the CDs in a moment, I promise that. But I want to, another thought I had while you were talking earlier that I try to do when I'm with clients, besides obviously being in the present moment, but hold a space for them so that they can feel whatever they want. And again, this is no judgment, but holding that space to allow them to be able to express themselves in any way that they need to in that moment. I think that that's really important as well.
Yeah. A lot of times we think we know what someone's going to say, and we think we know what's on their mind. And actually, if we listen deeply and we don't butt in telling them what we think we know, and I'm guilty of this too, if we really become better listeners, we learn, and we find out what's at the heart and root of something that we really didn't anticipate. And not only does it shed light on us for our own learning and growth, but we then see a depth and an expanded awareness about this other person that we weren't tapped into before. And it gives us permission to expand and grow and explore. It's a whole new conversation then. You have a whole new way of being with each other that's available, because now you know something new about them. And it can often be the beginning of very profound discussions.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about joining heart and higher self, because I think that is important, because I believe, and feel free to comment, that our heart directs us. Like, I've been learning all this stuff about how the heart emits more, not waves or energy, but that has more power in essence than the brain. And we give our brain and that pesky ego, seems to me, way too much credit. But talking about joining our heart and our higher self, because that's really where it's at. Because our higher self is our heart. I don't know if I'm quite saying that right, but that's where it's coming from. It's coming from our true essence and not the ego. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so many people, I know we all know people who we say are mental, and they come from this perspective of, everything's got to be analyzed and critiqued, and they've got to figure it out in their head. And if it doesn't make sense in some study or in their mind perfectly, then it must not be valid. And then we have other people who really live in their heart and know how to express their love and their joy, and all their decisions are based on what's the most loving thing I can do for myself in this moment. What's the most loving thing I can do for someone else in this moment? And so the mind and the heart have this whole expression that where they need to learn to meet and be expressed. And if you bring the heart and the mind together and express it as your voice and your truth and your will, then this alignment creates harmony in your body and in your life. And then when you take that a step further into communing with your higher self, either through meditation or receiving guidance or being creative or walks in nature, whatever you do that works for you to connect to the fuller you, the true expression of your divinity, communing there allows your higher self to express through you. And pretty soon you learn how to integrate it into your daily life, into your thoughts, into your voice and your vocal expression, into your heart, and you become aligned with your fuller self. And in the higher self expression, your higher self is connected to your soul, to the bigger picture that as the personality we don't always have clear vision of. And so the higher self will download, if you will, the guidance, the next step of the puzzle, the next stepping stone, so that you can move forward in gentleness and grace and ease and joy and whatever intention you set for yourself to accomplish your life's work, to accomplish your dharma, to feel strong and joyous in your heart's path. And we are all encoded in our heart with our instruction manual, right? We all come with an instruction manual. It's just in our heart, not on paper. And so tapping our higher selves into our hearts, we learn to live our joy and the path of our heart with this guidance. And that's the best, because then life is really good. It is. Well, it's magical, and the essence of your true self and what's for your path comes shining through every single person and everywhere you go. All the people in your life, when you're listening to your guidance, following your heart, and living in truth and alignment with your higher self, it creates the universal flow that brings all the cooperative components of the universe into play. And so the people who come to you then, and the people who cross your path, and the things that you experience, all are in service to this. So that's why it's so important to have your beliefs and your heart and your higher self all in alignment with what you truly intend and want for yourself, because it will outpicture in your life. So if you don't like what you see, then you can go back in and reconfigure your thoughts and your belief systems and align your heart with what really will bring you joy and recreate.
I love the talk about, you touched on it, and I was like, oh, she's reading my mind, awesome, about magic, because sometimes I think we forget, because especially I should say for me, I'm challenged when it comes to having fun and lightening up, but life really is magical if you think about it. And, there's lots to celebrate, there's lots to have fun, and, remembering that.
Yeah, I have a lesson and a poem in the book about magic, and in it says you're forever blessed with the inclination to be magical. It's really easy to see in children, and it's really easy to appreciate in children. And sometimes, as adults, we're taught, be a grown-up, quit playing around, don't be so childlike, take life seriously. And really, the most loving adult thing we can do is to continue to be childlike in our hearts and in our nature, because it doesn't mean you don't take responsibility for things or get your work done. It means that in your heart of hearts, in the way you relate to yourself and the way you speak to yourself internally, the way you look at yourself in the mirror, the way you deal with others, takes into consideration the depth and the profound grace of a childlike heart and childlike joy as you create. It's very difficult to create under pressure without that. It's very difficult to create something positive in your life when you don't feel the flow and the love and the joy and the juice of creativity. So allowing yourself to be in a field in your career that feels joyous to you creates that magic and that flow.
Let's switch gears now, and I want to talk about your music. We have a couple of your CDs, and actually, we have Forever Love, which it was about helping those who are transitioning, correct?
Yes.
So talk a little bit about that, because I'm having someone actually next week who wrote this awesome book about, I just told the story of this process of a young boy who was dying, and it was phenomenal because the second part of the book was having a frank conversation and getting your views on death and dying. And I think in our American culture, we see that as something negative. But I had someone recently, Amnon also was like a mother to me, who transitioned, and she was like, planned it out. I'm going to have my choir singing hallelujah around me. And I mean, really embraced it and went out with a bang and how she wanted to. But I think this is lovely. So talk about how healing it is, and not only for the person transitioning, but for the caregivers and the family and people that are around.
This CD, all the songs came through as either I was in stages of big transitions in my life, or most of them as people I was close to were in some stage of death and dying. And I had very profound transmissions of love and grace and energy and joy and tears as they came through. So it wasn't just like I heard the music and wrote it down. I had experiences with most of the songs. Some of them would last a couple hours, where I just played the music over and over again, and I'd have tears streaming down my face and my heart blasting open, and I would feel profound grace and chills and presence around me. And some of them I saw angels, or the person who was transitioning, like holographically before me. And so I had very profound experiences with the music. And what I found was that it's very prescriptive. I used to be a hospice volunteer, and I've been with people as they've crossed. And I have had feedback from many people, nurses, hospice personnel, and even used it as my own mother was crossing a little over a year ago. And I saw a big difference. Playing it in the room while she was conscious and unconscious made a big difference in her facial expressions and how she rested and how peaceful she was. It made a big difference in how the people in the room behaved. And even when I felt like words or music would be too much for her energetically, I turned the sound all the way down so that it was silent, and I let it play. And the transmission of the energy that's held in the music was enough to still shift the people in the room and my mom. And when it went off, I noticed a difference. And then I'd put it back on, and I'd see again how it calmed them and relaxed them and brought peace to them in the way they were dealing with things. I have had many people tell me who have used it in grieving, whether they were the caretakers or the family members, that they couldn't get up out of bed sometimes for months after losing a spouse or a child, and then they would listen to this music, and it got them up and out of bed, and it got them moving through their lives again, and they felt empowered, and they really saw a difference. I had another friend who is a nurse and a hospice nurse, and her husband was transitioning about the same time my mother was. They actually crossed in the same day, but I didn't know my mother was sick for months ahead of time, but this woman knew her husband was ill. And so they used a CD every day to listen to, and used it as a therapeutic process, because the different songs address different stages of grief, and they address different stages of transition. And so they saw that it facilitated many important conversations for them, many beautiful moments of presence and grieving together. And being able to say goodbye with dignity and tenderness and compassion. And so they didn't feel that everything was so traumatic. They felt grace and beauty and understanding and support in their process.
Talk a little bit, you've touched on it, about energy, because sound healing is phenomenal. I had worked with a healer a couple weeks ago who brought sound in, and I had forgotten, because I'd done a sound healing probably 5 years ago, and I'd forgotten how powerful sound is, because everything's energy, but we forget that because we think, oh, this is solid, but it's not. And so with you, talk a little bit about what you mean by shifting and sound and energy, because people who might not be familiar with that might need a little bit of an explanation.
Well, you can walk in a room and feel the energy in the room, right? You can tell when someone's mad or moody or sad or happy. And so same with someone who is ill. You can feel that they're in a tender place. You can feel that loud noises, or at least a lot of people can feel that maybe loud noises wouldn't be appropriate, or bright lights. You can be soft spoken, and you can be tender and gentle with your touch, and find ways to reach them that nurture them and support them where they are instead of where we are in the moment. We can walk in all bubbly and busy and let me tell you about my day, but that's not where they are. That's not what they need in the moment. And so with the music takes you into the feeling and the awareness of, oh, we've got something tender going on here, or oh, we have a way to be with each other that helps you drop into full presence and support for each other for whatever is going on. And sometimes we're so busy, or we don't want to feel the pain. We don't want to cry, or we don't want to cry in front of someone who's dying or grieving. And really, tears are the river of life, and they wash and cleanse and heal. And if you cry and show your emotions, then it gives the other people permission to do so as well. And at the deathbed of someone, that's the perfect place to say what you need to say and to let go of what you need to let go of. And so this music helps people arrive there sometimes when they didn't know how to themselves. And it becomes a gift.
Now let's play a clip. Do you want to share your thoughts after or before we play the clip?
Before. This first clip, we're just going to hear some of it, is called This Precious Moment. And this song came through one day. I was sitting at the piano, and I felt my grandmother's presence come around, and I know it well and love it. And so I was playing, and it was about being present, the song, and I just felt so blessed by her in that moment. And later that day, I went to my calendar and was making some notes, and I realized it was the anniversary of her passing. And so that was the day the song came through. And it's simply about being present with each other and being grateful for each moment and what can unfold in that moment. And that's really important when you're dealing with people who are ill and transitioning, or anyone really.
All right, so we'll go ahead and play that clip. Now, are you playing everything on this CD?
Yes, I play all the piano and do all the vocals and harmonies. And I also played the cello and violin and flute and the other instruments that are on the CD through the synthesizer because I heard them all. When I receive my music, I hear all the parts of the music and all the instrument parts. And so I had to record them one at a time and layer them in. So it was a pretty exciting process.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. I have like zero talent when it comes to music. I can't play anything. I've probably tried to play just about everything, and I think I might kill people with my voice if I sing too loudly, so I have zero musical talent. Now, do we have another clip we're going to play? So do you want to give us, and this one will have vocals, correct?
No, this one doesn't. This one is called On the Bridge of Our Love. And this song came through when I was grieving and feeling separated from someone I loved. And often when I receive music, again, it's prescriptive for me in the moment. It helps me heal whatever I'm going through and have a greater perspective of what's going on, because I don't just understand the notes and the words or the lyrics, I understand the transmission of grace and healing and teaching that is behind it. And so it comes as a full package. And so people who listen to it can tap into intentionally the transmission of all of it and will receive it just being present with it. So this particular song is to facilitate healing for people who have felt separate or alone or disconnected from someone they love, either through death or breakup. And as you imagine, if you close your eyes and listen to this, you can imagine yourself on a bridge, like an arched bridge in a beautiful garden, and imagine yourself on this bridge on one side and the person that you're missing or longing for on the other side. And my experience when I received the song was of doing this and then being lifted by angels up in the air, each of us on both sides of the bridge, and then brought together in union over the center of the bridge in light. And the teaching that I received in the transmission of this music was that the truth of our love is always forever alive. And if we will simply choose to tap into that truth, not to remember the pain or the grief or the missing the person, but simply the love we shared and how it flowed from our hearts to each other, that is what keeps it alive, and that is the truth of our love, and we can tap into that in any moment we choose to. And this song is to facilitate that knowing in that reunion with whoever we're missing. And so you can just breathe deeply and listen to it and see if you connect with someone you love.
For our honeymoon, because my husband's Italian, and we there was this bridge that had angels all across. And this is kind of took me back there because I love sculpture and I'm so visual that I kind of envisioned like that bridge and that kind of it was interesting that you were talking about that at the beginning and what you visualized because it had all these beautiful angel sculptures. Now you also have Grateful Day. Tell us a little bit about that because I laughed. I said, "Oh, it's in my car," because I listened to it, and I think we'd have world peace if everyone had a copy of this in their car. Because I know I'm like, beloved, I needed this when I lived in LA. Where were you? Because I hated driving and would just cause stress, and so I find it very soothing for driving. But tell us about this CD.
That was my first CD, and it's all instrumental, easy listening music. And it's interesting that you say that because one of the first people to review the CD when it came out was a guy in LA. And he wrote this review about how peaceful it was and how it made you feel like you were out in nature and all in a serene setting. And he said, but, it's really good for when you're driving on the 5. And so, it's like the interstate, I guess it was where he was when he was listening to it. But this CD is very soothing, and I've had great response from it as well. And I had a girlfriend whose mom had severe Alzheimer's, and she would always pace. And she said she tried everything to get her to sit and be still, and she would never do it, and even different music. And she said she put my CD on, and her mom would sit. And the second it was over, she'd get up and start pacing again. So she'd put it back on, and she'd sit. And her mom actually transitioned to that CD. And so I've had other people tell me that it really helped them mellow out and shift gears in a big way. This CD was recorded back in 2005, and so the recording technology and mastering technology is so greatly improved that I just remixed and remastered it this year, and I am waiting for it to arrive any day now, the new version. And the new version, some of the tracks are lengthened and added a few instruments in, but it's basically the same CD, just with a much sharper, clearer sound that most people wouldn't notice the difference, but I do. So
okay, I was going to say, like, I wear hearing aids, so I doubt that. I don't know, with the hearing aids I might, but probably not because I have no ability in this area. Now, okay, so besides this CD coming out, do you have any more plans for any more CDs or books or any creative endeavors?
I do. I have so much music. I have hundreds of songs that have come through the years, and I am in the process of recording more, and hope to get several more CDs out soon. The CD Forever Love that has singing on it as well, for people who are in transition and grieving. It has a booklet with it that has all the lyrics and song notes and stories of how each song came through. And so the amazing experiences that I had, huge experiences that were life-changing as each song came through, are listed in there. And it's also on my website for my music, which is belovedheartsong.com. And you can listen to clips of different music there and connect to my other websites as well there.
Now, since we're talking about life lessons, which I know all of us benefit from, what would you say, because, I mean, what's great about, I love the poem that you read, because, we talked about the hills and the valleys of life, and that's just part of the human experience, but for someone who's really in a lot of pain right now and really struggling, what advice would you have for them?
To be with it. To be with your pain and not distract yourself from it. To not try to be busy and not try to alter yourself. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's fun to drink margaritas and it's fun to go out and socialize, but if you're actually in pain and you're really trying to figure out your next steps in life or how to heal something or how to solve a deep problem or issue in your life, then being present with it is the greatest gift you can bring. And sometimes just being still and sitting still and calming your monkey mind and breathing deeply is enough for an insight or a guidance or an aha to pop in, and you just give yourself permission to receive it. It's not going to come through anything else. It really takes, you can ask for people to give you their opinions on what you should do. You can talk about it a million times and create more drama wherever you go. But to really heal something, to solve it, I would say go within, be still, listen, and give it time to show itself. And it may not show itself as a voice. You may see a vision, you may get a symbol, you may think of a piece of music, or it may come in the form of a song on the radio, or it may come in something your child says to you spontaneously, and all of a sudden you get your aha and your understanding. So trust your own inner wisdom, and if you don't yet, then start listening so that you can.
I think that's excellent, because too many times we try to shove down the pain, but the pain or the issue is going to make its way out. Whether it just is. It's not going to stay down there. So it's going to make itself known until you make peace with it and heal. And I've yet to have someone say to me, oh gosh, the healing process, because we have this fear of facing whatever it is, thinking we can't handle it or it's too great. But I've yet to have someone say to me, it was too great. The healing process wasn't. The healing process helped. But when they faced it, it was much less. They thought it was going to be extremely painful, and it was easier to face it than to push it down or deny it or hold on to it.
Right. There's always a gift and always a message in pain or any trouble we're having. So whatever we're going through, we can always ask, what is the gift of this for me? What is the message here for me? What can I take away and use, and then we make something better out of it.
I'm all about do this show because I want people to move forward in their life and reawaken their brilliance. So what you've given us great life lessons today, but if someone was to take one step forward to do something to change their life and reawaken their brilliance, what would you say to them?
To love what is. To find a way to love and be present with what is in the moment, and bring your heart and compassion to yourself and to the situation.
Outstanding. Now tell us, okay, so you're having this remix CD that's coming out shortly. Do you have any upcoming classes? Or any other creative works that you'd like to share, that any other books besides the Cosmic Cradle?
Well, it's not ready yet, but I'm still working on a book that I started many years ago of poetry that is Rumi-esque. It's all love poetry to the divine. And so that's in the works. Many CDs in the works. Teachings of the masters that I received for years as I was channeling years ago, that's in the works. And classes have yet to be scheduled for the fall, and I'm thinking of teaching on the East Coast and West Coast in the fall, and so we'll just see what comes up. But all of the music is going to be brought out soon, and so there'll be a lot more to come.
All right, fantastic. Give us your website again so people can find you.
Okay, the music website is belovedheartsong.com. The Lahochi site for the energy healing is Lahochi, LAHOCHI.org. And my original website is openyourhearts.com, and that has everything on it.
And we also did, actually a year ago, we did an interview with Beloved on Lahochi. So that's a really great energy technique. And if you want to know more about that, you can go to reawakenyourbrilliance.com. And if you type in Beloved, it'll pop up and you can learn more about Lahochi. And I encourage you. I learned a lot about it. Didn't know any of it until someone said, you need to talk to Beloved. So I'm like, all right. Amnon here in the studio got a healing on his knee and was really happy. So I want to thank Beloved for coming out today. And thank everyone for watching. To learn more about me and everything I'm doing, please go to reawakenyourbrilliance.com, and we'll see you here next week. All right, everyone, go out there and reawaken your brilliance. Bye now.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, The Tanya Love Show, Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, and if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by Atomus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals. ThatVidBlasterGuy.com, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.